Are you ready for reacting to true stories, scary animations? Oh, we back with a brand new one. And boy, you better get that out of here and get the new dang chain. We got the skull face now available. So please just click that first link in the description below and get one. It's at dangbling.com. Get it before it's gone. But you already know this is not a drill. Get to the kitchen and get your snacks. Go get your popcorn and get your chips and your peanuts and candy and chocolate and sour gummy worms and soda or juice or water. Yeah. And if you guys haven't already, make sure to click the subscribe button. It'll really help out the channel. And gotta give a shout out to MJV Animations. They're the ones that made these amazing animations we're about to watch. Subscribe to them and check them out. MJV Animations. But I think we're ready. If you got your snacks and you got your blankets, let's go ahead and check these out. And let's go!
At the time this happened, I was only a 13-year-old girl. This happened 2 years ago when I was fairly naive. I was a major introvert, only friends with a few people in my class. I wanted to be social, but I preferred to be alone and read or write. Classic nerd things. In early November, I got a text on my phone. It was a group chat, asking if we wanted to hang out at night near a park at our school.
Heck no.
My parents, being strict and paranoid, would never let me go. Luckily, or what I thought was luck, they were heading out for an overnight trip, and they would be back around 4 in the morning. Everything fell into place for me. Once my parents left around 8 o'clock, I ran out the door and made my way to the park.
Don't do it, girl.
The one thing I made sure to do was lock the door, because my parents were paranoid after all, and it was their biggest thing that they engraved into me. Once I arrived at the park, I noticed a creepy figure near the edge of the woods. No one else seemed to notice it, and I already thought I had enough reputation as a weirdo.
Oh, not today, Satan.
And I didn't mention it. The night drew on, and I was having the time of my life, ignoring the gut feeling I had telling me to run. Every so often I would look over my shoulder and the man would still be standing there.
Yeah.
Around 10 o'clock, 4 out of the 10 people there had to leave due to their curfew. It was getting cold and was nearly pitch black with a few lit streetlights every so often. The rest of us decided to go as well since it felt more eerie and quiet. The place we were hanging out at was a field that was fenced in with a few exits and entrances. A large wide field with a small park in the back and our giant middle school behind us. The front of the field faced the empty road, and the right and left sides were surrounded by forest. All the people left were getting picked up by cars. The man from earlier that I saw stood by the right part of the forest and road exit that I needed to take to get home. I walked away from my group and I tried to steady my heavy breathing. I didn't want to be paranoid, but all the true crime I listened to was catching up to me. The man was probably early 40s to late 30s, dark hair with a beard.
And overweight.
Around 5'9", but at the time it seemed like 6 foot or more.
Jeez.
He stood about 10 feet from the exit I had to take, so when I got close enough to it, I ran for about 30 feet through the exit and through the woods. Once I finally felt safe enough, I started to quickly walk through the woods. I heard a snap and a crunch from behind me. I stopped walking for a second and quickly checked over my shoulder. Around 15 feet behind me stood the very same man. He was walking slowly behind me, almost as if he was trying not to be suspicious, but it only made my fear worse. I turned around and walked so quickly, I was basically jogging. I lived about 10 minutes away from the park that we had hung out at, and I wasn't necessarily athletic enough to run home. After around 7 minutes of walking fast, I was in my neighborhood. I knew that I could run to my house now if I had to, so I checked to see if he was still trailing behind me. To my horror, he was only 20 yards away. So I ran, faster than I've ever.
There you go.
I could hear his footsteps behind me thumping across the concrete as he ran too.
Okay, well, he can't run that fast.
Way I knew well and tried to lose him in a park, making my way home longer. I could hear his heavy breath followed by his footsteps as he tried to keep up. I cut through the houses, backyards, and front yards. I finally made it to my house and flew up the steps. I looked behind me and he had just arrived at the bottom of my stairs as I unlocked the door and bursted through it, shutting it closed behind me, and I heard him hit the door with his whole body. I ran around the house and locked all of the windows, turned off all the lights, and I hid in my bedroom with a kitchen knife, just in case he got in. But he didn't, luckily. If this was a better world, that would be where my story would end, but it doesn't. After a few months, I hadn't really told anyone what happened since I didn't want to get in trouble with my parents for sneaking out.
Ew, what are
I didn't
y'all
go out with
eating?
anyone after this, and my loner status returned. I began to write horror stories as a coping mechanism, and I never went out past 7 o'clock. It was around February when a classmate of mine was sharing a story of some random man following her home from the bus. She described him almost the exact same as the man who had chased me home. Even another girl mentioned that he sounded like the guy who stood outside the school and tried to follow her home once. I didn't join in, but everyone agreed that this guy was just weird. He was kind of forgotten, and eventually I moved on too. But around May, I was getting ready to walk to school when my mom pulled me aside and showed me a picture of a man. The guy who stalked me, actually. She told me that he'd been arrested 2 weeks ago for sexually assaulting a child and had escaped last night. She told me to keep an eye out for him and to call the cops if I saw him. I was shaking the whole time I walked to school. It haunts me to know that if he had caught me, I would most likely be in her position, or even dead.
No, girl, you need to start taking some running classes. There ain't no shame in it, okay, girl? It's time to learn how to sprint. We got to join track and field. We got to join cross country or something, because that's just crazy being chased by that big old burly man. Okay, guys, don't go anywhere, please. Like stick with me, and let's go ahead and watch another one. Let's go.
My parents own a small shop in our town. It's nothing special, just selling regular groceries and food from local businesses.
Gross.
They'd been running it for over 20 years, and my dad took it very seriously, keeping the store open until 12 every night, and sometimes even staying later. When I turned 16, I started helping out a few hours a week, and when I turned 18, I started working full-time while doing online college courses. This night was my dad's day off, and my mom was having some health issues at the time, so it was just me closing the store. It usually stays not so busy for the last few hours of the night, and there was never too much to stock either. Around 9, almost no customers were coming in.
Dang.
I think only 1 or 2 people came in, so I grabbed a sandwich from the fridge and took a quick lunch break. Of course, right when I did, someone walked in.
The
I
heck?
made my way back to the front desk and put the sandwich aside, waiting for the customer to finish shopping first. I pulled my phone out, and after a couple minutes, I looked up to see how the customer was doing, but didn't see him. I scanned the room again and still didn't see him anywhere. Thinking they were maybe in some off angle I couldn't see.
He's in the
A
bathroom.
few more minutes, but they still never came into sight. I didn't even hear them either. Feeling off, I walked around the counter and started looking through the aisles, and it didn't take long to find them.
Don't do it, man.
In the second aisle, a man was crouched down at the end, staring at the floor and not moving or making a sound.
Ew.
Sir? The man immediately looked up at me, then stood up and continued to stare at me. All I could focus on were his eyes.
Oh my
They were
god.
wide and full, kind of in an unsettling way. But after a couple seconds, he quickly walked away and out of the store, never having spoken a word.
That's an alien.
Once I saw him leave, my first reaction was to check where he was crouching to see if there was any reason to be there, but there wasn't. I mean, that whole time, he was just crouching in the aisle. It kind of freaked me out because of how odd it was. I went up to the front door and checked that he'd fully left the area. Obviously it was dark out, but I didn't see him anywhere. I then went back to the counter and stayed a little more alert. 3 hours passed, and not a single customer came in.
Jeez.
It was now time to close up, and after so much time passing, I wasn't thinking about that man anymore. I was just ready to go home. I walked up to the front and locked up the door, then grabbed my bag and started walking toward the back door to leave, when an extremely loud bang screeched through the store. I stopped in place knowing it had to come from somewhere in the back, and it was so loud that I had no idea what it could have been. Worried, I slowly walked to the corner and looked down the back hallway. At the far end, dust was scattering through the air as the metal back door was loosely open.
Ooh.
And standing right in the hallway was that same man from earlier. He was
Dang.
staring at me with the same wide open eyes.
Big ol' eyes. Look like a
I didn't
frog.
know what to say or do. It was like I was just frozen in that moment. Despite his clear determination to break in, he didn't look angry. He had no emotion at all. I took a few slow steps back, then ran for the front, leaving the store and running to the other side of the street, calling 911. I called my dad too, and he rushed over.
That's your
to make sure
dad?
I was okay. The man at the store was gone when police got there, but he'd left behind a sledgehammer sitting on the pavement behind the store.
Jeez.
At first sight, nothing looked to be missing or stolen, so his intentions are anyone's best guess. It's clear he was unstable though.
You're not you when you're hungry. Grab a Snickers.
Thankfully for me, I didn't have to find out what that was.
No! Man, you cooked. That's the only customer that came into your store? Man, you need to start selling some better food and better groceries or something. Jeez. Hire a live band or something. You guys need a gimmick, because right now y'all attracting the wrong customers. Okay, don't go anywhere. We're just gonna watch one more. Stick with me, okay? Here we go. Let's get it.
This happened roughly 6 years ago, and I would have been about 26 years old at the time. I live in a small town in the mountains of southern Appalachia. If you aren't from this region, and that immediately brings to mind visions of poverty and dark hollers, well, they do exist, but the town I am from and still reside in is a university town with roughly 70,000 people. We have a number of public parks, but in recent years, the most popular is the newest.
For
It's
now.
built on the south side of town and has a dog park, in addition to a normal playground type park for children, and numerous walking trails, some of which go through wooded areas. It isn't uncommon for people to be walking their dogs late at night. I need to describe the layout of the park a little bit in order for the story to make sense. There was a large parking lot on one end, and this is the main entrance of the park, and it is where the children's playground and the dog park are located, as well as the restrooms, etc. This lot is long, rather than wide, and stretches alongside a sidewalk that runs next to the playground. On the other end of the park, which is over some hills and through some lightly forested areas, there is a small pond and another smaller lot. This lot has a gate just like the bigger one, but it has a little area before the gate where it is common for people walking at night to park their cars. I had a friend back in those days who was an avid walker. She was a couple years older than I was, and although petite, was sort of fearless. She would very often go walking at night by herself, and her apartment at the time was sort of out in the country,
That's how you
a mile
walk?
or so from this park. So sometimes she would drive out there and walk by herself at night as well. I would say things sometimes like, you know, you should be more careful. Maybe that's just because I'm a man who was raised in the South and we're perpetually worried about the females in our lives. She was fairly enlightened and would get angry when I would say something like this. None of this is to say I told you so, by the way. I'm just trying to paint a picture. Anyways,
It's a full moon.
started meeting her some evenings and walking with her, figuring a bearded 6'1" and 250-pound man would be a
Jeez.
deterrent to most creepers. So one night we were walking, and while there were usually a few people in the park, it wasn't super late. It was late fall, and the nights were starting to come a little bit quicker. It seemed like maybe it was around 8 p.m., but like I said, it's been 6 years. Anyways, I had a rental car that week, luckily as it turned out, because of some work being done on my car, and I had parked behind the gate on the wooded side of the park. As we came through the woods and rounded a hill towards the main entrance of the park, I sort of clocked a van in my peripheral vision that was pulling in the
That
gate of the
Scooby-Doo
park,
van.
which for whatever reason had not yet been closed. The Parks and Rec employees in my town are sort of notorious for not being strict enforcers on the closed at dusk rule. The weird thing about this was that it was sort of a cliche creeper van. It was an older model Chevy with no windows in the back, a mottled rust and paint job, and dark tinted windows in the front. For a lot of you, depending on where you live, I'm sure this might already be raising alarms, but In Tennessee, that is like every fifth car on the road. As we walked up the sidewalk parallel to the lot, the van turned behind us and then drove slowly past us on our left, coming almost to a stop, then speeding up to circle around ahead of us at the end of the lot. At this point, obviously I was paying closer attention. Now the van was coming back toward us, and the driver's side window was down. This would be the part where a lot of naysayers will probably think I'm making this up, because the man staring at us from that van was about the closest thing to a cliche creep I could think of.
Ugh.
He was large and even bigger than me, with weird aviator-style glasses that may have been sunglasses, but were transparent enough that you could still see his eyes.
Oh no.
He was wearing a hat and a camo-style coat, and he had a black mustache. He idled not 10 feet from us, just staring at us expressionless for a moment. We both sort of stopped and stiffened and looked back at him. There was something about his gaze, some cold-hearted malevolence, the likes of which I hadn't really ever felt in my life, which immediately chilled me to my bones. I've read articles about sociopaths and psychopaths, where scientists theorize that the reason we feel uneasy in their presence is tied into an ancient biological response from the times when truly we were their prey.
Jeez, is that Gru?
Human groups and tribes. But I felt that in that moment. I felt like I was out in the wild, naked on the tundra, and he was zeroing in on me.
Despicable me, it's
It
Gru.
was this feeling more than anything that elevated this moment for me, from merely dealing with a creep to something that was perhaps far more sinister. I grabbed my friend by the arm and said roughly, "Let's go." And started quickly across the field toward the series of hills and trees that were between us and the car, leaving the sidewalk behind. She was shocked at first and followed quickly. We half walked and half ran a few hundred yards, before realizing that the van had pulled out of the lot behind us and disappeared. My adrenaline was still pumping, and we had a quick conversation, basically consisting of, "What in God's name was that?" and "Let's get back to the car and get out of here." We quickly moved through the woods and started back down the hill. As it descends toward the lot, there are a couple of wide, sweeping switchbacks with some trees and shrubs alongside. We crested the hill and could see the lot below, and what we saw there made my blood stop pumping for a moment. Behind my rental car, the Chevy van was parked, with its bright lights shining on the car and up the hill a little ways. We hid behind some foliage and watched as he switched his headlights on and off for a minute or two. Then he pulled back a bit and shined his brights further up the hill. He sat there for a long moment as we cursed the fact that we had left our cell phones in the car, tried to decide what to do.
You dummies.
Of course, he abruptly peeled out of the lot and took off down the road, which I did not mention before is a 2-lane country road with not much on it but cow fields and trees. We took off running down the hill toward the car and were now just outside the ring of trees near the lot when he suddenly swings back in. Luckily, we were near cover and got behind a tree, just up the hill from him. Again, he started shining his brights off and on into the trees. At this point, I was thinking I was going to have to attack him or something to try and draw him away long enough for my friend to escape. Fear, adrenaline, and anger all converged in me like a dark river, and
Don't be a hero.
seconds away from bursting out from the tree and taking a run at him when he once again peeled out of the lot as fast as he could. Well, he didn't have to tell us twice. We sprinted the remaining distance to the rental car and jumped in. I took off and went about 60 miles per hour down the road until we got into a neighborhood. I never saw the van on the road. In fact, I didn't see any cars until we got to a main road. I have no idea where he went. If he was sitting somewhere off the road, waiting or what. We got back to her apartment and my friend told me that, at long last, she would accept a can of mace if I ever wanted to give her one.
Yeah.
We had a good laugh at that, but we were desperately shaken. We decompressed and talked it over a while, and I agreed to contact the police the next day. I went down to the station and told an officer what happened, but I never heard anything else about it.
Big
I
officer.
had no idea what he wanted. Maybe he was a pervert. Maybe he was a good old boy that just didn't like the idea of people in the park after dark. But that look he gave me when he was idling next to us makes me think we were pretty lucky to get away. Whatever his intentions, I would surely be glad to never meet him again.
No! Yeah, no more hikes, okay? Jeez. In the middle of the night, like if you see somebody that's looking big and scary like that, just run, forget the car, and keep your cell phones with you, okay? At all times. That's what she said. What? But if you enjoyed this video, then go ahead and smack that like button. And yeah, I'ma see ya in the next one. Peace.